Welcome viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX World, and here are the top headlines. The body of Karmei Zur, taken by Hamas during the October 7, 2023 attacks, is now arrived in Tel Aviv via the Red Cross. His death was confirmed the very same day and the transfer is a part of the ceasefire deal. 3 hostages are now still believed to be held in Gaza. UNRWA Chief Philippe Lazzarini has warned that the agency faces a $200 million shortfall that could cripple services for millions of Palestinian refugees. He's urged states to pair mandate renewal with real funding after major donors cut support. The United Nations has condemned an attack on a mosque in the West Bank, reportedly by Israeli civilians. Secretary General Guterres has stated that he is deeply disturbed. Meanwhile, Palestinians have stated that the mosque was set on fire and slogans were sprayed as well. A senior Saudi Arabian official has praised Lebanon for preventing threats to Arab states and curbing drug smuggling. He's highlighted that Lebanese President On and PM Salam's initiatives has stated that Saudi Arabia will send a delegation to boost trade and resolve export barriers. Canada's CSIS disrupted Iranian plots against critics and blocked Russian attempts to acquire sensitive goods. Companies were alerted to Russian-linked front firms, and Canada has tense ties with both nations. Russian attack on Kiev killed 1 and wounded 15, damaging 8 districts, while Russia downed 216 Ukrainian drones overnight. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has announced Operation Southern Spear, a Southcom-led mission targeting narco-terrorists across the Western Hemisphere. The operation aims to curb drug flows and bolster homeland security across 31 countries under the Southcom's purview. J.D. Vance has blamed Senate Democrats for the record U.S. shutdown, criticizing delays in healthcare for illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, federal employees are now returning back to work, while DHS has announced $10,000 bonuses for TSA agents. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. The body of a deceased hostage believed to have been taken by Hamas in Gaza on the 7th of October 2023 has now arrived at Israel's National Forensics Institute in Tel Aviv. The Israeli military and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office has confirmed that the remains were transferred via the Red Cross, although the identity of the deceased has not been officially confirmed at the time of handover. Following the handover, the body has now been identified as Karmei Zur. He was taken by Hamas, as I mentioned earlier, during the October 7th terrorist attacks, and his death was reported the very same day. His wife, Ayelet, also perished in the attack. Now, under the ceasefire deal inked last month, Hamas has released 20 surviving hostages in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. The deal also included the return of the remains of 28 hostages, including Zur, in exchange for the remains of 360 Hamas members. This transfer leaves 3 hostages still believed to be held in Gaza. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Karmei Zur, geopolitical expert from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Yet another remains of a hostage who was taken on the 7th of October in 2023 has now been returned from Gaza via the Red Cross. The identification has taken place through forensic means as well. Confirmation has come in too. But in the meantime, there are still 3 bodies that are left to be returned. How do you view this process up until now? It has been delayed significantly, but now with just 3 bodies remaining to be returned, could we finally see the first phase of the deal being realized in its full capacity?
Yes, good morning. Luckily there are only 3 left, but let's not forget that they should be returned about 3 weeks to 1 month ago. I mean, they were, Hamas received all the people they wanted, about 2,000 alive people, in returning for 20 alive and 28 bodies. The 20 came all together, and the 28, they were dropping one by one or two every some days, because they were delaying and they are trying to do all kinds of tricks and lying. They don't know where they are not with us, they are with other factions, Islamic Jihad. Finally, with patience, now there are only 3 left, and Israel thinks that at least 2 of the 3, they are completely sure that they know where they are, and they should be returned immediately. Effectively, the rest of Meni Godard, they were recognized, and he's going to be buried in an honorable way by their family. And let's not forget also that he was 73 years old. He was taken from his house, and he was executed the same days of the 7th of October. Mm-hmm. So this is Hamas, this is the genocide terrorist organization with jihadist ideology, that the only aim is to kill all Jews and to kill all people that they are, from their point of view, against their jihadist view of the world, not only Jews, Christians, anyone. So this is the people. We are finally getting back all the corpses, and we hope in this way is going to open a path to the second phase, mm-hmm. which is to dismantle Hamas and to start a civil administration in Gaza Strip.
Indeed, and speaking of the second phase, I want to understand from you, what are your expectations regarding the negotiations? Of course, the disarmament of Hamas is one of the crucial points put forth by Donald Trump, but so is the International Board of Peace.
What kind of negotiations? There are no negotiations. They were agreed, there was an agreement, there were 20 points. It was the first phase to give back all the hostages, and the second phase to start with an international crew to build a civil administration together with Palestinians from the PA and also from Gaza itself. Even there is one appointee that is going to be the chef of all this new civil administration. He was born in Gaza even, and Israel accepted all this. So there are no negotiations. They must dismantle themselves, give their weapons, and just flew from the place or stay in the place, not as terrorists. So if they are going to implement the second phase, everything is going to be okay. If not, they will have to face the consequences of different international actors to dismantle them in a violent way, even if it's Israel or even if it's United States and Qatar, Turkey. We have doubts from Israel that they are going to do that, but anyway, that's the second phase, and that's what they have to do.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we track further updates. We're now learning that the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has warned that a severe funding shortfall could threaten vital services across the region. UNRWA Chief Philippe Lazzarini has told the UN General Assembly that the agency faces a $200 million gap between the end of 2025 and early 2026. He has stated that without new funding, healthcare and education for millions of Palestinian refugees could be disrupted. The UNRWA provides 40% of primary healthcare in Gaza and educates hundreds of thousands of children. Lazzarini also highlighted that recent accusations against UNRWA staff have led to some donor nations to pause funding. He has urged UN member states to provide support and not just renew the agency's mandate. Meanwhile, the International Court of Justice ruling is non-binding, and Lazzarini says it sets a legal reference for many countries to ensure that the UNRWA can operate. Listen in.
This morning I highlighted the fact that our shortfall between now and the end of the first quarter is $200 million. Previous year, when we reached December, we say, well, we just have to bridge December, and in January we will have the new contribution of the new year. But this contribution at the beginning of the year used to be the U.S. contribution that we don't have. So we will not have the big influx of money at the beginning of January 26.
Stay with us on the broadcast is Mr. Matty Zweig. Of course, Israel has raised its concerns with the UNRWA quite a number of times, especially since there were certain reports that had come out regarding some of its officials, in fact, being in a tacit understanding with Hamas and Hamas's operations on the ground. The fact that so many countries, so many erstwhile donors have pulled their money, and which has resulted in a funding shortfall. What does this say about the reaction to the accusations that were made by Israel? Do you think other countries are now heeding the concerns that Israel has had regarding the UNRWA and its operations?
Well, unfortunately, they were supposed to give relief to the Palestinian population, but within the years, this organization has been degraded to a lot of corruption and a lot of ties even with the local terrorist organizations like Hamas. Israel said this a number of times. With the new administration of Trump, they also cut a lot of money so they can change their ways and clean themselves. Even countries like Switzerland and others also cut their ties with them because they say they are not really fulfilling their original purpose, who is to bring relief to refugees. And by the way, the word refugees has been overinflated here because the Palestinians are the only people in the world that after 5 or 6 generations, everybody continued to be labeled as refugees. So it can be understandable in Gaza Strip, but it's not understandable in other countries like in Jordan and Syria, even in the West Bank. So everything has been biased, and let's face the facts. I mean, they were really having a lot of corruption. They were also having these ties with terrorist organizations. So today they are in a state of deficit, in a state that they are in debts of about $200 million. When they have austerity means and cost control measures, they say, in about $150 million. Anyway, something must be changed, but for good and in a big manner to gain the trustability from the Western countries and to receive back their money. And this raises another question, a big question. I mean, the U.S. was a big part of their budget, and now they decided what they decided because they see the way they are behaving. But let's think, why not the big people that is have criticizing these things like China or some other Arab countries that they have a lot of petrodollars money? Nobody is really giving them any aid. So let's raise these questions. Why they don't do it and they just criticize? So they can demonize the West, so they can demonize Israel, and in the meanwhile, the population, the innocents, are suffering from a lack of real help, medical help and others from this agency. So I hope some agreement is going to be soon so they can really give all the help the people is needed.
Indeed, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking our time sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World. Meanwhile, viewers, we're shifting focus to more news coming in from the Middle East. We're now learning that the United Nations has condemned an attack on a mosque in the West Bank allegedly carried out by Israeli civilians. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric has stated that Secretary General Antonio Guterres is deeply disturbed by the incident. Now, according to Palestinian residents, the civilians set fire to the mosque and sprayed slogans on its walls, although the fire was quickly put out. The UN also reported that October saw a record 264 attacks on Palestinians by Israelis, the highest since tracking began in 2006. The West Bank, of course, remains a focal point in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with most countries, along with the UN, considering Israeli settlements in the area as illegal under international law. However, Israel has disputed this, citing security concerns and historical ties to the land. Listen in to what the UN spokesperson had to say.
Regarding the West Bank, I can tell you that we are deeply disturbed by the attacks by Israeli settlers who set fire overnight to a mosque in a West Bank village. Such attacks on places of worship are completely unacceptable. We have and will continue to condemn attacks by Israeli settlers on Palestinians and their property in the West Bank. Israel, as the occupying power, has a responsibility to protect the civilian population and ensure that those responsible for these attacks, including this attack on a mosque and the spray painting of horrendous language on a mosque, be brought to account.
With us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Baum, foreign editor of Weekly Blitz. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. This is not the only such attack that we've seen. Earlier as well, there were reports that Israeli civilians had assaulted some Palestinians in the West Bank as well. Now, with the relative peace in Gaza, with the stopping of the bombardment after the peace deal was to crop up in the West Bank as well.
Good morning, Pia. Very nice to be with you again. These acts of violence by the settlers to date have been not strongly condemned by the Israeli government. And because of this, the settlers feel emboldened. And this current spate of increased activity, I think, is all down to Israel positioning itself for the next phase of any peace deal. The settlers want to ensure that they have an area of land. As you know, the West Bank is currently split into 3 zones, A, B and C.
Yes.
And in the particular area we're talking about, the settlers want to ensure, as does the Israeli government, that that particular area will act as a security zone for Israel in the negotiations going forward. So I expect such acts to increase unless the Israeli government under Netanyahu really comes down strongly on the settlers. This current act seems to be strong, violence seems to be stronger than previous ones, so it may be that that's a red line even for the Israeli government. What's very interesting about the UN statement was he was more concerned about property being daubed with, let's say, racist graffiti, rather than he was about the recent bombing of the car attack in India, where he simply expressed condolences to the family and condemned all acts of terrorism. His statement on the recent West Bank violence was 6 times longer than his statement condemning the car bomb in India, which really says something about the leadership of the UN. And it's also very interesting that since Donald Trump has come into office, he's only had 1 meeting, and that was a public relations stunt at the UN General Assembly when he gave a talk there with Guterres, the head of the UN. So I think the Trump administration holds the UN in contempt, as he should.
Indeed, we are familiar with how the United Nations operates. It's not a secret. But speaking of, the law itself that we've recently seen passed by the Israeli Knesset with regards to the annexation of the West Bank, this is something that Netanyahu's party had voted against. There was one member of the Likud that did cast the decisive vote, but we've seen considerable support from Itamar Ben-Gvir's party, from Bezalel Smotrich's party of the coalition as well. United States has signaled that it does not support it. We've also seen statements coming in from Marco Rubio, who states that this could have consequences on the further negotiations that are set to take place with regards to the second phase. In your assessment, would you concur with what Rubio has stated? And what do you make of the United States position as well regarding this? Is it a bid to sort of balance its interests with the Arab states and also keep the door open for a 2-state solution?
Yeah, now that's a really good and complex question. My assessment is that despite the rhetoric and despite the Netanyahu government's, let's say, legislation, the West Bank or that particular zone in the West Bank will not be formally annexed. I think they will take heed of what the Trump administration has said and will not go the full way in annexing the West Bank. This is just, I believe, to be rhetoric and just putting in place their position for what I hope will be, what the whole world hopes will be a further round of peace talks about how the Palestinian state is going to be resolved, if in fact there will be a Palestinian state. So I think Netanyahu was appealing to his base in order to ensure the coalition stays intact. Because of the statements, the very strong statements of the Trump administration. Donald Trump himself said there will be no annexation, it will not happen. I believe that to be the case, although there is support within some sectors of the administration, especially the US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who would very strongly argue for some kind of Israeli, if not annexation, further control, permanent control perhaps, over an expanded area. So I don't think it will happen. I think it's just Israel positioning itself for hopefully a future round of talks.
Indeed, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we track further updates. Two 15-year-old Palestinians have been killed by Israeli soldiers in the West Bank. The Palestinian Health Ministry has confirmed the deaths of Bilal Baha Ali Baran and Mohammad Mahmoud Abu Ayash, both of whom were shot near Beit Omar, north of Hebron. The Israeli military, however, stated that the two were eliminated as they were on their way to carry out a terrorist attack near the settlement of Karmei Zur. The incident has escalated tensions in the region, and Israel and the Palestinian Authority are now providing conflicting accounts of the event. The Palestinian Authority has labeled the two as martyrs, while the Israeli military has defended its action as part of its security operations. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia plans to boost commercial ties with Lebanon after the Lebanese authorities showed efficacy in curbing drug smuggling to the kingdom in recent months. A senior Saudi official has in fact emphasized that strained ties may see improvement, with easing controls on imports becoming a first tangible sign. He's added that Riyadh still wants to see Lebanon's weak central government disarm Hezbollah, a demand that the group has rejected. The official stated that Saudi Arabia will take imminent steps to bolster commercial relations between the two nations, noting that the Saudi delegation will visit Lebanon soon to discuss resolving barriers hindering Lebanese exports. He stated that the kingdom values initiatives taken recently by President Joseph Aoun and Prime Minister Nawaf Salam. The official added that efforts by the new Lebanese administration to prevent Lebanon from being used as a platform for threats to Arab states' security will advance bilateral relations as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Baum, foreign editor of Weekly Blitz. It's of course known that there is little to no headway being made on the disarmament of Hezbollah, which is in itself an Iranian proxy, something that does speak about the influence that Iran wields in the Middle East, though it has been waning for quite a while now, especially with Hezbollah's top leadership being decimated by the Israelis. The Saudis do have their own interests in opposing Iranian sphere of influence and sort of consolidating their own influence across the Middle East. What do you make of this imminent reset that we're seeing, imminent improvement of Saudi-Lebanese ties? How do you read into it, and what are the implications?
Yeah, I think this is a very strong statement by the Saudis. They recognize that Iran, for a number of reasons that we've spoken about before, are completely isolated, as they've never been since the totalitarian theocracy took control. And by making this statement and these wanting to create further commercial ties with Lebanon, I think this is a positive sign for the Lebanese government to try even harder to disarm Hezbollah. A commercial tie-up with Saudi and all the wealth it can offer, as opposed to what Iran has just offered, which is just funding terrorism, will be a major sign politically to the Aoun government, which should encourage him and them, which should encourage that government to further go on the path of attempting as much as they can to not only disarm Hezbollah, but to isolate Iran. I think this is a very astute political move on behalf of the Saudis. It says it gives a sign to the Lebanese people, and it also makes a statement to Iran. So I think if Saudi are good to their word and carry out these commitments, I think the Lebanese people can rejoice in that.
Indeed. So with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time and, of course, sharing your analysis of what's transpiring in the Middle East. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to more news coming in. We're now learning that Canada's spy agency, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, has now revealed that it thwarted potentially lethal threats directed by Iran against individuals it views as enemies. CSI's director Dan Rogers had confirmed that the agencies had disrupted these threats this year, although he provided no further details. Rogers emphasized that the agency's efforts to counter the actions of Iranian intelligence and their proxies targeting Canada-based critics, of Tehran. Additionally, Rogers highlighted CSIS's actions to block Russian attempts to illegally acquire Canadian goods and technologies. He explained that Canadian companies were alerted to European front companies linked to Russian agents attempting to procure sensitive materials. Canada has long had strained relations with both Iran and Russia, with the country serving diplomatic ties with Tehran in 2012. More news coming in. An explosion rocked a fireworks warehouse in eastern district of Sao Paulo in Brazil. At least 2 people were injured. Eyewitnesses and their videos taken by them show smoke and flames rising near a busy road in the Tatuapé district with emergency vehicles on the scene. Authorities meanwhile say they are investigating the cause of the blast. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on Gulf Today. We will continue to track all of these developments very closely. In the meantime, we're dipping into a quick short break.